שמע שיר חדש ובנענע.
Welcome. I am being broadcast to you today back in Eretz Yisrael, but I am in the holy city of Haifa. Beautiful Al Hayam for some important meetings, hearing about exciting things that are going on here and the community, about the future of the community, the Torah future of the community, and more to follow about that. I want to show you something to begin. All right. And that is, last week we spoke about an important mitzvah known as Shiluach HaKan, which means sending away the mother bird. And this is the gentleman who I did the mitzvah with, happened to grace the cover of Mishpacha magazine, Rabbi Khan. And as I said briefly last week, Khan means a bird's nest. His name is Khan. And I suggest that you read the article about him. Just going to quickly repeat the story because we want to get on to what's going on with our parsha, what's going on with our world. But obviously, this is an essential piece. What is the essential piece? We need to focus now on the concept of Shira, and particularly about birds who are associated with this past Shabbat Shira, but it also, more importantly, is setting a tone for this week Parshat Yisro as well, in the context of the rapidly evolving events regarding Eretz Yisrael, Trump, Gaza, and the context it is within the general pattern of Geula, as taught by the Mekubalim, particularly the Vilna Gaon and his Talmidim. There's movement, and I want to map that out for you and explain some of the important messages of the connection between Parshat B'Shalach and Parshat Yisro. Very, very important. So we'll begin the story as follows. I mentioned very briefly last week about my journey in Queens to do the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKan, and I was shocked when I came back this Friday and purchased, as I normally do, Mishpacha magazine as Shalom Bayis, so my wife can enjoy Shabbos K'moshe Tzarich, as I buy it every week without fail. And here he is, Rabbi Avram Yitzchak Kahan. And I literally was behelim. I was just in shock for a few minutes because with this gentleman 20 years ago, my wife and I, actually my wife more than me, took 2 eggs from a subway platform somewhere in Williamsburg. And subsequently, we had 2 sons in short order. My son Elimelech, who was born about a year later, and then my other son Akiva, who was born 18 months later after that. It seems that was one of the 3 things that I was zocha to complete in 2004, but then was able to repeat this year. And again, so I see it as a important turning point in our lives, and hopefully in the lives of many, many, many other members of Klal Yisrael, and we'll explain why. So the 3 mitzvahs were to daven at the kever of Rabbi Elimelech of Lizentz, which I was able to do on the day of Trump's inauguration, January 20th. I was right there. Everybody's anticipating Trump. I was anticipating the Heilige Rebbe Amalek, and I'd much prefer to be there. But and then I had planned to daven by the Ribnitzer Rebbe in Monsey when I was in New York, of course, Lubavitch Rebbe. And then I was convinced by Rabbi Khan that he had an opportunity to do this mitzvah, which I hadn't done for 20 years. And he said that the Ribnitzer Rebbe is extremely connected to this mitzvah, which is quoted in this article. You'll see in here, he mentions the connection between the Ribnitzer Rebbe and the inyan of Shiluach HaKan. And the essential connection is, believe it or not, that there's a place in Shemayim called Heichal Kan Sipor. It's a special, call it an office, an office, a place in Gan Eden. And in that place, from that place, emanates the soul of Mashiach. Said the Ribnitzer Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha, that he had metaphysically visited that place. through his davening, through his meditations. He'd been there. And from that point forward, Bruce Rebbe having passed away like about 90s, I believe, then that has become a custom among many people to first do the mitzvah Shulach HaKhan with Rabbi Khan, who is the world's expert. He's eaten thousands of those eggs, and he's done the mitzvah thousands of times since his childhood, at age 13. And the Gedolei Hador told him that his neshama is linked to this mitzvah in a very profound way. My wife thinks he looks like a bird. He definitely talks like a bird. Very quickly, he chirps, chirps, chirps in a high voice. And he has incredible knowledge, the biological and natural knowledge about birds. Not only pigeons in New York City subways, but also all kinds of kosher, basically doves and pigeons they do, because even though it says in the article, even though there are things like blue jays or other birds are technically kosher, but we have no masorah on eating them, so we don't eat them. Sparrows are kosher, but we don't eat them. But we have a masorah on these two things. It's actually, they're both karbanos, Tor and Ben Yonah. And the only difference between a Tor and a Ben Yonah is one, different age maturity, but also different qualifications for the different karbanos. But one thing is clear, that a Tor will never remarry. They're so loyal to each other. So you have to understand that this mitzvah also connects very, very closely to the inyan of marriage. He explained to me the dedication of a pigeon couple, okay, to each other. The father sits on the nest all day. The mother sits on the nest all night. Can you imagine? That's their shutfus. They're completely connected on this. And when you send away the eggs, when you send away the mother bird and you take the eggs, it causes a stir in Shemayim, as we said from the Zohar Kadosh, which is a complaint against the person who took the eggs, but really against the, so to speak, Klal Yisrael for doing this mitzvah. And then Hashem answers in Shemayim, but what about my children who are taken from my nest, which is the Beis HaMikdash, which is referred to in Shirat Hayam. Mikdash Hashem konenu yadecha. It's with a chaf, but it's the same concept. It's a machon. A machon and a cane are very close, are very similar in concept. A unique place, which of course that place is the Bayit Shlishi. So this mitzvah of Shiluach HaKhan is very associated with Shirat Hayam for two reasons. One, the Shiluach HaKhan mitzvah, according to Zohar, evokes the actual neshama of the ultimate Mashiach, who is the responsible, according to the Machlokas Rambam and other Mefarshim, but basically he's responsible to fulfill the promise of Bayit Shlishi. And the Jewish people at Kriyas Yamsuf saw that even more distinctly than Yecheskel Hanavi, who saw it as outlined in Perek Mem. Okay. Now all this is wrapped around another element, which is Parshas Yisro. Okay, so the marriage comment is very, very important, because here's an insight about marriage and Mashiach. You ready? So what is the marriage that we speak about between Hashem and Klal Yisrael when Hashem chose us and took us? So our connection to Hashem is Torah mitzvahs, and that's kilu a marriage. When we come to our Sinai, V'hi Yom Klos Moshe, Kalos Ksiv, the Chazal tell us that the reality is that we have to imagine that Klal Yisrael, we are the bride of Hashem. We are the bride of Hashem. That's the Shechina. That's our ultimate expression. And the place of our home, our marital home, is Bayit Shlishi. And the place of the most intense love that's expressed in a marital home is the Kodesh Kadashim. And that's why marriage is not just, of course, for the inyan of Puravu. Obviously. By the way, we had a Shalom Zachar for my grandson, who I'm pleased to report this past week, on Wednesday morning, there was the bris, today being Monday, and had a name for my wonderful and illustrious father, Avram Dov Schwartz. It's the fifth Avram Dov that's in our family. And Chazal tell us in Pirkei Avos, number 5 has special Shechina potential because it says Agudoso al Eretz Yisada, that Hashem's presence with 5 people is important. It's not as 10, not as important as 10, but even one person is Shechina, 2 people is Shechina, 3 people is Shechina because the Bezdin is 3, Kerevim Tishbot. But when you have 5 people, there's something magical about 5 people because it's Agudoso al Eretz Yisada. There's a fist. There's something you're holding on to. There's a yad. And of course, yad biyad is yedid. So the 5 really is the half of the partnership. So it's a concept of marriage. The 5 plus the 5, then that's your minyan. Because 5 is itself significant. Follow me? Agudas al Yisada, Yisoid, which is the predecessor to Malchus. Agudas al Yisada, his fist, which is an aguda, is a fist, is established on the ground. Facts on the ground, like in Gaza. Facts on the ground that are being worked out right now in a remarkable way. So let me explain. There's a marriage. That marriage is the marital home is the Bayit Shlishi. The place of the pure love and union is Kaddish Kadashim. That's what marriage is. If you want to really understand the yesod of marriage, it's that. Which means you have to be on a very high level. A marriage has a very tall order to emulate. You have to say to yourself the following question. Is the Shekhinah worthy of residing in my house? And do we sense that the Shekhinah is between us? Because that is the Mishnah explains to us. Ishal Re'ehu, 2 people, it's already Shekhinah. Kal b'chomer, when it's a Klal Yisrael bonding in a family sense, then it's a Gudas al Eretz Yisada, and that leads us to the higher levels of Shechina. So you could say, being a marital therapist for many years, by the way, you could say that it's not all or nothing, but there's, just like with Shechina, there's development, there's developmental stages. The first set of Shechina is a person who recites Hashem's name, davens and learns by themselves. If you mention Hashem's name, you sit down and take some tehillim. You go by yourself to a kever of a tzaddik. You just sit down with a tehillim and recite tehillim or tikkun kloli, whatever it might be. There's a guarantee from the Pirkei Avos that the Shekhinah is with you. With 2, it requires sicha or conversation. As nidbaru yirei Hashem ishal re'ehu. If there's a conversation between 2 people, yesh beinehem divrei Torah, then Shechina shriya beinehem. Then there's Shechina. So stage 1 is really that you are in a matzav of praising and seeking Hashem. That's if you're a bachelor or a bachelorette. You want to get married? First step is saying, I want this shidduch to be l'shem shamayim and not l'shem Hollywood, which is burning anyway. So if the notions of marriage are coming from Hollywood, it's already been slugged up. It's already been destroyed. Amazing that the Hollywood sign didn't burn itself. And I have relatives in fancy neighborhoods, from neighborhoods in LA, and they were ready to leave their houses and escape. In the frummest Hancock Park, the nicest neighborhoods, the most Hamish neighborhoods, the most Yiddish neighborhoods, the most Torah-dik neighborhoods, they were ready to flee. Not once, but on many occasions. Shows you how flimsy that is. It's not going to stand. Al-Gudassat, you saw that something has to stand. So, parenthetically, a little advice to singles is don't ask yourself, what's a good shidduch for me? But ask yourself, what type of shidduch would Hashem want me to have? As I tell people, don't ask for what you need. This is tough, but what you are needed for. What actually do you have to offer? If you come to Hashem and say, Hashem, I need this, I need that. So Hashem would respond logically to you, okay, but what are you needed for? And I'm happy to support you, but tell me what it is that you're going to do. What are you going to do to deserve these support and gifts? Don't you want to do something with them? No, I just want to get a check, hang out, and chill. No, what are you needed for? So big breakthrough can be in marriage when you say, I don't want just the perfect person who I think is going to make me happy or that I'll feel safe with. Of course, those things are important. But you have to say, look, Hashem told me, build community, make a place for the Shekhinah. You have to buy into that. You have to buy into the idea that your job is to create a home, but not just a home where the Shekhinah will not be boreach. The Shekhinah does not come to a place where there's no simcha, right? The idea of shira and simcha are uniquely connected. We don't want sad songs. We don't want laments. That's called kina. Kina is not shira. When you say kinos, we lament. When we say shira, we thank. Here's the other yisod. The next yisod is thanks. You have to be willing to say to the next person, I appreciate you. I thank you, because you've already learned that in stage one of Shekhinah, which is you yourself, to say thank you to Hashem for good and for bad. Once you pass that stage, then you are actually worthy of entering a relationship with another person. That's the two-person Shekhinah, because you're ready to say to the other person, thank you. And if you say to the other person, thank you, and not no thanks, okay, then you progress past what I call the Cain and Hevel stage, in which there's strife, jealousy, and eventually homicide. Because that's what can happen to relationships that do not appreciate the other and do not see Hashem as part of the occasion. Hashem cannot tolerate hate, jealousy, and violence. Cannot. It's not a home where the Shekhinah will reside. It cannot even reside in a place that's dark and unhappy and depressed. You're going to chase Hashem away. Oz v'hadar, levusha, we say, v'tischak liyom acharon. Tischak, mischak, play, be happy, joyous. So if you want to go into marriage and you're all depressed, don't do it, because you're just going to drag the other person down, and you're not going to be available for much and not for them. So the third stage, interesting enough, is Bezdin, which means there have to be rules of the house. Rules of the house mean mediniut. Who's koveya here? Is there a posek that we listen to? Is there a set of rules, a set of minhagim? What do we do? What don't we do? There has to be an agreement. If one judge is judging one way and trying to impose their psak, another judge is judging another way and imposing their psak, sorry. A bezdin operates with a 2-1 rule. If two will tilt in one direction, in this case, I'd like to suggest the three are Hashem and the husband and the wife. So we know Hashem is one vote, and then there's the husband and the wife. They might want to swing it one way or the other, depending on how they understand it. But you have to work it out. You know, there are many, many ways to approach Avodas Hashem. You need someone to ask. You need someone to consult with the chief judge, with the mumcha, which is Hashem. And then you'll get it right. It has to be unified rules. The nice thing about Bezdin is it's actually a Mishnah in Sanhedrin. Once you vote, and let's say you vote, the person is guilty, and the other is chayav money, and the other two say he's patur money, you are not allowed, as an individual judge, to go out and say to the person, well, what can I do? I really voted for you, but the truth is that I was overruled by my colleagues, but I dissented. You're not allowed to say that. It's an isser of rechilus, but it's another isser of holech rachil megalis sod. You're revealing secrets. There's a unity to a psak, even if it's 2 against 1. Once you make the decision, you close ranks. So important in parenting, so important in any issue. That's a tall order. But the 5, agudas arat yisoda, means you're setting foundations. Foundations are basically tikkun hamidos. You gotta have great midos. Yisod actually means, by definition, being able to curb one's drives and desires in the face of higher interests and values. That's why we say tzaddik yisod olam. That's already approaching the level of being a tzaddik and a tzaddikis. And beyond that, it's Shekhinah. So what happens with the Jewish people is that their collective souls together are the Shekhinah. But we have to have harmony between the souls. It cannot be It cannot be hatred. There cannot be strife. There cannot be anger. There cannot be vindication. Certainly cannot be lashon hara. It's a tall order. If you view marriage from that perspective, to build a place worthy of the Shekhinah on the highest level, completely different world. Other marriages, we're going to order Uber Eats. We're going to hang out, watch a movie, have a good time, very romantic. Yes, those are important elements, but you need to have fun. You need to be happy. This is work. It works. It takes work to be happy, especially with Manazeh. People are very, very unhappy. The most unhappy generation we've ever had. There's more flu than ever before. There's a flu epidemic in America. Everybody's flown. Everybody's sick, right? They don't have immune systems anymore. Why don't we have strong immune systems? You're supposed to be happy and strong. If you're depressed and angry, it drains you of all your energy. How are you going to fight off these diseases and infections? Okay. So B'kitzur, the experience that I saw, that I learned about, was that this mitzvah of Shiluch HaKhan that we were able to do, coupled with the context of these three events, davening at Rabbi Elimelech, plus davening at the Ribnitzer after, and I explained to you how we got together and it took three other people to help me do it. I couldn't do it myself. And then we danced and there was joy. You need other people to help in. Now, how does that connect with Parshas Yisro? At the very end of Parshas Beshalach, after the Shiras Hayam, we also have the Parsha of Man, which you can speak endless hours about. But Hashem is teaching the Jewish people through Man not to be afraid about Parnasa. Don't be afraid. Just do the right thing. Be yashar. Don't worry. Worry about Parnasa is lethal. Those that worried and also didn't focus on their ruchnius, their man was further and further away. Those who said, I want to do Avodas Hashem, and of course I have to worry about Parnasa, the man was delivered to their doorstep. Those who worked very hard and gathered extra man, the pasuk says, not a medrash, the pasuk says they didn't gain anything. If you're going to knock yourself out, work 70-hour weeks, there's no guarantee that you'll make any money than if you work 35 hours a week or 3 hours a week. So this is a very deep and difficult lesson because we and our lowest selves are very food and shelter insecure. A human being by definition is vulnerable. We need food, clothing, and shelter. That's why the marital contract takes away those worries. That's what it is. You cannot have Shekhinah if you're worried about those things. And Nebuch, think about the hostages. They had none of that. They had not food security. They had not even security of their very lives. They certainly didn't have shelter. They were deprived of the basic realities of humanity. They lived in a concentration camp. And unfortunately, this is where we're stuck. We cannot seem to get past this. There's only one person, one force in the world that is thinking beyond this state where Shekhinah is not achievable. And that is President Trump. President Trump has floated a plan which seems to be getting a little more in focus. And it seems to me that the plan is as follows for Gaza. And it reminds me of Yisro. I'm going to tell you why. Yisro, after Man, we have a final episode of Beshalach. There were certain complaints about water and food. This is what Hashem was training Klal Yisrael before they got the Torah. We have to work on our emunah. We have to work on our faith and security. This is a daily battle to feel secure that we have what we need one day at a time. There's a reality in the world called time and space that Hashem created to test us. That's our test. Money and pressure about time go together. If you need to pay a lot of money in a very brief period of time, which is a creation, you're under enormous pressure. You have no menuchas hanefesh, you can't have Shekhinah. If you're going to be able to gain time, spread things over a longer period of time, you'll have shalva, sheket, and you'll be able to have more yeshiva das and simcha, right? When time compression hits us, we panic, we run, We're like the people who are running to collect mun 23 hours a day, which of course they wouldn't get one ounce extra. We can't be in that panika. Hashem is teaching us to be present, focused, connected, not worried. Can't eat our hearts out about every little thing in life. But here's the situation of us living in Eretz Yisrael and what we see, the atrocities that have committed against us, not mamish, the atrocities that remind us of things that happened to us years before, bitsura, in the same tsura in many ways, with deadly murderers that we can identify as associated with Amalek. Well, guess what? At the very end of Parashat B'Shalach, we have Amalek appearing. Amalek itself appears. And what happens in that encounter? So let's take a look. Because I believe that the stage of Geula that we're at is now transitioning into a brand new phase, which is called the Battle of Amalek. All right? So again, before we look inside, the Vilna Gaon said that there are signs. The Geula has to follow a pattern. What are these 7 steps that he identified? He says, well, there has to be, Eretz Yisrael needs to come to life, which requires a couple of steps. Kibbutz Golios, there has to be an ingathering of exiles, not everybody, but as the Vilna Gaon said to his students, if there'll be 600,000 Jews in Eretz Yisrael, the process of redemption is irreversible. He said this to them in the 1700s, at a time where there wasn't 6,000 Jews in Eretz Yisrael. And he sent his Talmidim in the harshest circumstances. And many of his Talmidim died from plagues, malaria, typhus, Arabs. He knew. He said the Vilna Gaon cried for 3 days when he told his Talmidim that it's time to go to Israel, because he knew they would all suffer incredibly. But we had to break through that iron barrier. Jews have to come, whichever way, and whichever Jews. Once that process started, the land needed to be cleansed from its tumah, because it was overrun with tumah. It was the property of the most vile heathens, the Romans and the church, and etc. And of course the Muslims. So, which were a little bit better, thank God. Eretz Yisrael had a little relief from the Christians for a very long time, because they didn't have to live under Christian rule that long. Only in the Byzantine period, which was pretty early, and then the Muslim conquest was already in the 7th century. And then other than the Crusades, Eretz Yisrael has been putter from Rome, really putter, but never completely putter. So as Jews started to gather back, Vilna Gaon noted, the land would start to flourish. That's another important stage. But more importantly, mitzvos hatluyos ba'aretz. There would be the ability to observe the laws of Trumos and Maisos. When Rav Kook was chief rabbi of the nascent Jewish state that was in formation, he had to deal with halachic questions of Truma and Maiser that hadn't been dealt with directly for thousands of years, okay, except for individuals. But on a national level, where there were already tens of thousands of Jews involved in returning to the land of Israel and cultivating the land of Israel, shilas. So what do I do about Truma? What do I do about Shemitah? And that's what developed the debate approach, saying, look, okay, we have halachic remedies where you can sell a piece of property titularly to a non-Jew, which will exempt you from Shemitah. That's called heter mechira. Some say that's still the best way to deal with these issues. Some say it's not acceptable. There's Otzar Bezdin, in which we don't work the land, but we send out Jews to collect, or non-Jews, to collect the produce on behalf of the Bezdin. The Bezdin pays them for their expenses, but it's not cultivating the land per se, like a farmer. But these shilas became in play, and they're a work in progress. It's an amazing volume of halacha, living halacha. That's what Eretz Yisrael is. Eretz Yisrael is where the halacha comes to life. It's not intellectual. It's not a head without a body. It's not theory. It's practice. We move from theory to practice. The land is here. Shemitah, Truma, Maser. And then came the issue of a state with an army. What are the rules? What do you do about Shabbos or Kashrus in an army? And to a large extent, Rabbi Goren, the first chief rabbi of the IDF, set out a program for this, which is more or less followed today by the Israeli rabbinate. Okay. And there's still major issues. Major issues. But the point is that Vilna Gaon was charting that there's a development. He said the next level of development was Yerushalayim Yer Kodesh. Yerushalayim itself has to be built up. So besides the Jews returning, besides the land becoming purified because of mitzvahs of police arts, besides the idea that these halachos are being observed, we need Yerushalayim to become a city populated by Jews. Now, when in the 1760s, you didn't have people. So Vilna Gaon starts to send people. The Baal Shem Tov starts to send people. Slowly, little by little, you have Yeshuvim, Tzfat, and there was already in Tzfat, and then in Tveria, and then of course there's Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov who are buried in Tveria. Many tzaddikim came and they lived up north. There was, of course, the Prushim, the students of the Vilna Gaon who came to Yerushalayim and other Hasidim. This was all percolating, but it was in the late 1700s. And it would take another 50, 60 years until things would take traction. So when the Vilna Gaon was saying about Kibbutz Golios and about Binyan Yerushalayim didn't exist before 1860s. Moshe Montefiore was the first one who built a settlement outside the walls of Yerushalayim. All right? You know what they used to do? He said the Jews would squat there during the day, so they would have the rights. And at night, they fled back inside the walls of the old city because the Arab marauders would come, the terrorists would come and look to kill them. You couldn't step foot out of the walls of the old city. That was in the 1860s. 1870s, then you start a few neighborhoods here and there. Very small. But Yerushalayim really did not come unto its own, really, fully, because it was conquered in 48. Even the old city fell. 48, we only had parts of the new city. So real Binyan Yerushalayim didn't really begin until after 67. That's not a long time ago. You have to look at that as the next stage. Yes, there was land. Yes, there was produce. That was already in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Jaffa oranges, great. But, and later diamonds from the Bursa. That's what Israel was before 1967. And then after 67, things start to percolate. And of course, there was the 73 war. But Yerushalayim is being built. The whole old city. I think it happened almost overnight. How after 67, you had the beautiful old city. It didn't take a long time. Now you have Binyan Yerushalayim. Now you start seeing a whole unified Yerushalayim. That was another stage, okay? But what comes after that? What comes after that? So there's three final stages the Vilna Gaon outlines after all these things are accomplished. And the stage that we're in is what he describes as Anshe Amana. Anshe Amana means the end of corrupt leadership. Corruption, corrupt officials, corrupt leaders who are not following the Ratzon Hashem, who are simply interested in padding their pockets or personal power or personal gain or partisanship or families or ideologies not connected to Torah mitzvahs or for the welfare, even for the welfare of the Jewish people. Those individuals, there are good individuals, very good individuals, always good individuals. There are always many, many good individuals, but who's in charge? Who carries the decision? What's going to happen? What is the policy? What are our laws? All right. So we are in right now, I believe, we entered this stage post 1990. I'll explain to you why. 1990, of course, is a major turning point. It's the last 250 years of recorded time that can be, according to Vilna Gaon. And the Geula, the transformation, just like with a marriage, as I said to you, there are stages of development. Hashem decided come what may, after 1990, the Google is coming rapidly, and we can't do anything about it. We just have to sit back and enjoy the roller coaster ride. But it is a roller coaster. All of a sudden, full of Soviet Union, all of a sudden, the discovery of the internet, all of a sudden, technology that we never even heard of, biological breakthroughs, medical breakthroughs, extension of life, impossible achievements, space, new things in space, technology, the human genome is broken. What man has learned since 1990 is absolutely incredible. Atomic power, what we've learned about the universe itself. You know, you had the Hubble telescope, very, very nice. But now you've got, after the Hubble telescope, I forget the name of the new telescope, has revealed to us and worlds that we could never see. It's Hashem is showing himself. He's playing his hand. He's trying to get to, it's like a relationship. You have a couple of dates, and and you get to know each other, and you talk about things, and you get familiar. But then there's a certain point in which things have to get serious. In every community it's different. Maybe in Hasidic communities, there used to be a basha, right? What's a basha? You had 1 meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings. Maybe they're up to 6 meetings today. I don't know how many. In the yeshivish world, who knows how many meetings? In the modern world, who knows? In the secular world, what's the limit? But Hashem is showing us more and more to get us ready, to get us closer. And then, I think it started, you could really trace this, in my opinion, to Bibi Netanyahu being given the position of Sar HaOtzar. This was in the early 90s, where he started to take on corruption. He started to take on fiscal mismanagement. He tried to transform Israel from a socialist communist state, which still vestiges of this are very, very strong, very strong. I mean, you have the Stadrut, you have Kupat Cholim, you have all these things which were basically based on a communist model, socialist model. But he tried to move things towards privatization. Then the military wings and the technology started to grow. Israeli technology was stagnant for a while, but then it started to take off with the advent of the computer. And he was presiding over those fiscal reforms. There was another fellow named Moshe Kachlon. Moshe Kachlon broke the cartel against Israeli phone users and other reforms. This is the process that Vilna Gaon identifies as called Anshe Amana. But we really, really have jettisoned into this era, okay, ever since what I would call 2010, which was another mark point of the Geula, which we passed Mincha time. We're first Mincha, we're passing Mincha. So at that sequence, in that stage, we started to see corruption being revealed at levels we didn't understand. Think about the Clintons and the scandals that they had, and what they discovered about them, and how bizyonos they were. They were the first presidents, him and his wife, that were of total bizoyon. He was caught in the White House doing horrible, despicable behavior, and then who knows? There's a whole trail of people that were their enemies that suddenly disappeared. And I want to go into details. Some people called her Killary. I'm not here to cast any aspersions on anyone. I'm not saying anybody's guilty of anything, but the things that we know for sure. There was an impeachment. And then we had the Obama administration. The Obama administration was a complete attempt to transform America into basically a socialist European country that had no great affection for Israel or commitment to Israel. And then started promoting. It was President Biden who himself sanctioned gay marriage. He himself was the one. He upstaged Obama and he said same-sex should be constitutionally understood as marriage. He did it. And then, of course, things broke open further and further with the trans and all the craziness of the woke culture. All this is like vomited out. And it became the policy. Right now, what's been exposed in just a few weeks that Trump's been president, the level of corruption and the level of misuse of funds, but also for really nefarious causes. So, for example, they found millions and millions and millions of dollars to promote the idea of homosexuality and transsexuality to the world, as if this is the mitzvah that we want to broadcast to the world. That's, it used to be that America wanted to promote democracy, freedom, the end of slavery, the end of corruption, in human rights, right? America was to export to the world good behavior and to inspire the world to good behavior, but we became just the opposite. We began to export perversion. We began to export hatred of Israel. We began to become a place that was anti-Semitism was tremendously comfortable. But it became a lot worse in the 4 years in between the 2 Trump presidencies, and I believe why. Bifroach v'shoyim kamo esev v'yatzitzu poli aven v'shamdem adei ad. In other words, Hashem allowed them to flourish so that they would come into the forefront and into the light. Now everything is becoming visible. Because of those 4 years of incredible abuse and hatred, nothing was hidden anymore. It was wide open. And now it can be eradicated or attempted to be eradicated. So what stage? I believe we're strongly into the stage of Anshe Amana. I'm not saying we've achieved it, but the battle is on. U.S. aid for giving away, the United States since October 7th has given $5 billion to Hamas. How can you understand this? How can you call them a friend of Israel? It's so much so you could cry, you could be shocked. The duplicity of the nations of the world, the United Nations, International Criminal Court, all that massive corruption came to a head in these last 4 years. And now all of a sudden, it's been turned on its head on a dime. What's very interesting about that is that the next segue, the next stage is called Milchemes Amalek. I truly believe that right now, we have begun a period in which that stage of Anshe Amana, in other words, responsible leadership, you see it in the United States. A whole cadre of people, whether you like them or not, whether you agree with their policies or not, and I'm not saying every policy is great, and I'm not here to say that President Trump is Mashiach necessarily, but responsibility to your voters, ethical use of funds, okay? Not promoting causes that destroy the Judeo-Christian ethic, but that support it, which is what America was founded on. Democratic principles were rooted in the Bible, were rooted in the Torah. And Kuratem Dror Ba'aretz, the Liberty Bell, is in Philadelphia, right? Kuratem Dror B'chol Haaretz, they took the pasuk, proclaim liberty throughout the land. Isn't that what America's about? It's not about promoting trans. They found that they spent millions of dollars experimenting on animals to turn them from normal to trans. Millions of dollars were spent by the United States government to promote this perversity. Over. It has to be over. We've entered the period of repair, Anshe Amana, responsible leadership, people calling into accountability. Let's see what happens. And let's see what happens here in Eretz Yisrael. Because we have a similar crisis of leadership. To have clarity. What is right and what is wrong? What is, as we say, what are we needed for? Not what do we need. What are we needed for? What promotes the welfare of the Jewish people in the land of Israel? I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the welfare of the Jewish people in the land of Israel as a Jewish state. Just talk about that. How we make it a hospitable and successful place for Jews, and not to look to accommodate the needs of all sort of other people and framing them as equal to every Jew. They're not. They're just not. It's a Jewish state. You have to come to that fact. And if we have, Baruch Hashem, workers and foreign people here and citizens who want to be part and they want to behave, which we don't know. So far, we have, a lot of Israeli Arabs. Many of them say that they love Israel. Who knows? Who knows? But then there's also many migrants from Africa who are loyal to their countries, who go out into the streets of Tel Aviv and fight about what's going on in Africa. And there's nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do. And of course, the more intense question about the quote unquote Palestinian question, and giving food and giving shelter to these murderers and allowing them and supporting them and withdrawing from their territory in order to let them proliferate once again on the hope that they may return emaciated hostages who may be dead or alive. Is this justice? Is this the Ratzon Hashem? I have to ask tough questions. Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm not here to paskin shilas. I don't have access to that level of knowledge, but Hashem does, and we have gedolim. We have to ask questions. So if it's true that we've made a pivot a little bit, maybe we've already gained traction in the world of Anshe Amana. Let's see. Maybe we've achieved something right now. What's next? What's next is the Gaza plan. What's next is a direct battle to banish Amalek. How do you do that? Now, in the end of last week's parsha, Moshe sends Yoshua to battle him. It's by Yachalosh Yeshua. Very difficult to defeat Amalek, almost impossible. We need Mashiach to defeat Amalek. But at least the tide has turned. I remember one thing, learn from Haman. Haman was at the pinnacle of his power and popularity. How many days did it take for him to fall off? It took one day. The first day he's invited to the meal, to the Mishnah of Esther, and the next day he's hanged. The interesting thing about Amalek that it tends to go the Nahaf Hohu. This Gaza plan is like a Nahaf Hohu. It's turned the world on its ears. It's said things that we could never say. It has turned the oppressor. It's turning these oppressors into what they truly are. And if this is true, then I would say the battle for Amalek has started. I'm not saying there weren't pieces of it throughout our time, but I'm really wondering. Now, just back to the birds for a second. Why is that important? Because the person who can finish Amalek is only Mashiach, which means by definition, we've taken a major step forward towards Mashiach, which is why I was very happy I could go to the mitzvah of Shiluch HaKan, which is associated with helping bring Mashiach. I would encourage everybody to go out and do the mitzvah. It'll help you find it. If you want to do it, it helps bring Mashiach personally and to the world. And the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl. Now, I have two very close Balabatim who are big fans of the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are birds. Parshas B'Shalach. I said to them, you know what? Hashem is supposed to bring us to Eretz Yisrael on the wings of eagles. Interestingly enough, that the two times this team won was when Trump was president. As if to say that something is going with the birds. Now they say for Parshas Shabbos Shir last week, we're supposed to have given food to the birds, which is problematic to do it on Shabbos because you can't feed foreign birds that are not your own Shabbos. However, why would we give them food? So some say it's because they ate the mun that Dasan and Aviram spread out in the fields on Shabbos to try and show up and contradict Moshe Rabbeinu. So what they did was they spread out mun, Shabbos mun, and the birds came and ate it, and they protected Moshe and his reputation from Dasan and Aviram. But some say we just are entering the Heichal Ban Sipur. We're becoming what we truly are, singers. And that means Halel Vehodah. We're in a period of intense Haladah. Yisro heard about the battle of Amalek and about Kriyas Yamsuf. Look at the association. Kriyas Yamsuf was a time of Shira. Battle of Amalek is also a time of Shira, but it's a prerequisite for the Melech to build the Beis Hamikdash. Yisro, according to the Zohar Kadosh, is the tikkun of Cain. Cain slew his brother out of jealousy, right? Moshe killed the Mitzri. The Mitzri was one representation of Cain that Hevel, who was Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama, or Shorish neshama, took care of. So we took care of a piece of Cain by Moshe Rabbeinu. The next piece was going to be Yisro. Yisro representing Cain. His children are Canaan. Let's look at my portion. Is the good Cain, is the Cain that doesn't slay his brother out of jealousy. They both brought Kabbanos, Cain and Hevel. They both wanted to be the Kohen. Yisro was a Kohen. But eventually, what does he do? He brings karbonos and eats them with Aaron HaKohen. You follow me? It's the tikkun of Cain on the level of I want to serve Hashem. In the highest level, they both want to serve Hashem. Cain and Hevel wanted to serve Hashem. But Yisro says, Hevel, guess what? Moshe Rabbeinu, my son-in-law, you win. You're superior to me. I will follow your path. I will follow your derech. Then he's called Yisro, which has names of Hashem, and he's given a parsha in the Torah. Unbelievable. By the way, Korach was the tikkun of the third tikkun of Cain, and that's because he was super ready to be Kohen Gadol. You understand? There's a question. The contest was who's going to be Kohen? Who's going to be the one to lead us in the service of Hashem? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Cain? Is it going to be Hevel? Is it going to be Moshe Rabbeinu? Is it going to be Yisro? Is it going to be Korach? Or is it going to be Aaron HaKohen? It's all the same question. These questions were resolved. Yisro was a key turning point because he heard two things, the two stages. He heard that we vanquished the Mitzrim, Shirat Hayam, and now the next step is going to be Beis HaMikdash, and Matan Torah is, of course, the model for Beis HaMikdash. Har Sinai is the model for the Mishkan and for the Beis HaMikdash. Mashiach is coming, says Yisro, okay, Amalek is now, they vanquished Amalek, I know what's next. I know what's next. I'm going this time to repair what Cain didn't do. I'm going to support Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm going to support Hevel. This is the world turning towards us. He's the righteous convert. This is what's going to happen to the world. Trump is unbelievably presenting a concept that the rightful owners of Eretz Yisrael should be the ones who receive the Torah, which is linked to the Jewish people into Eretz Yisrael. Let's see what happens. We may have entered a brand new era. Let's hold tight and let's hope, B'ez Hashem, that our tefillah should be answered. The Heichal Kan Sipur should be filled with song. The Philadelphia Eagles won. That's a good sign. Fly, Eagles, Fly is their song. Al Kanfei Nisharim, bring us back there to Israel so we can rebuild the Kan Sipur Shabbat Mata, which is the Bayis Shlishi B'Meher V'Yameinu. Amen.